It was mentioned that you're a rugby coach. So
in Stanford. Years ago, yes, I coached women's rugby, of all things. And in 1993-4, which is when I studied at Stanford, there was no women's rugby in South Africa. So I walked past the table in the orientation week and saw women's rugby, and I'd never heard of that, coming from a male-dominated culture in South Africa. So I stopped and said, "What is this?" And they said, "Who are you? You've got a very strange accent." And I said, "I'm South African." They knew about the rugby playing from here. So they said, "Have you coached rugby?" And I said, "No, but I played quite seriously up until university level." So they said, "Well, don't you want to coach us for a couple of weeks because we're waiting for a coach?" And I said, "Sure, if I can." And it ended up with me coaching them for the whole year and going to playoffs. I know. And I coached 2 women's rugby teams there at Stanford for a year. We went on the West Coast playoffs, and it was an immense experience because of being Ivy League players. Even though women or men, doesn't matter. I'd show them a move, backline move, or the scrum, which is the scrum formation. I'd show them a move, and then I'd go and train the backline, or vice versa, and then I'd come back to the scrum, and they'd say, "Oh, we've gotten 5 other examples of what you showed us." So they were very easy to train, very smart kids. So so I loved training them because they were all highly motivated, and it was very nice. I was a student, so I couldn't earn anything, so I did it for nothing really, except just because I felt obligated in a strange way. Anyway, when I got back to South Africa, they sent me a check which paid for some of my house purchase. Because they said it's honorarium. In terms of honorariums, you can get a single one-off payment. And I was completely stunned. I did not expect it. So I have a very warm memory of training the Stanford women. Unfortunately, we didn't go through the playoffs. We lost by 1 point in Portland in 94. And that's always been something that stings my memory, as you can imagine.
1 point.
Being able to go through. But the players and the memories of training them was remarkable. And of course, they had these 30 or 40 women playing just rugby, which is extremely violent sport. Okay, it's like American football, but without helmets. And next door to us was the Stanford official football team practice. 300 of these guys. When they finished practice, they all used to run around and stand around this field where I was training to watch these women do this. Because they couldn't believe there's no pads, no helmet, and they go crashing into each other. So, it's a sport that's not for beginners. I always tell people, they say, I played soccer seriously for a large period of my life as well. And I always tell them, soccer is like 10%. You have to have the mental capacity, 10% of rugby. Rugby, you're going to fight every week. You're actually having a fight with like 15 other men. Or this is no place for someone to pitch up to. Or cricket, I love playing cricket. And people, mentally, playing cricket, in my mind, is much easier than rugby. Rugby is a terrifying sport to have to play.
It's like a wrestling soccer. I used to play rugby in college, that's why I remembered it. And my coach was from South Africa, and he used to talk about the barbecue culture had come into the team on the weekends and all they used to go. That's why I remembered that when you said about Bry. So another quote about rugby is, it's a hooligans game played by gentlemen, and soccer or football is gentlemen games played by hooligans. So even if there is so much drama and actually people are bleeding, but nobody's going to argue with the refs in rugby. But in soccer, if slight bit, like they are like drama, they just roll over and they pretend that a lot has happened.
Yes, it's pathetic actually. I understand why they're doing it, is they try and get a win and so on, but there's a limit to it. And of course in rugby, you play the game really hard, as you know. And when the whistle goes at the end, you shake hands and you go and sit with the opponent and you have a glass of beer or whatever it is, and there's no hard feelings. So it's a lovely sport to play if it's played properly, rugby, and if it's trained properly. It's less dangerous than it looks. And of course, more people have died playing cricket than rugby, because cricket is someone throwing a giant rock at your head. And back in the day, if you got hit, you're in hospital. So I always tell people cricket has actually killed more people than rugby. Rugby just looks more dangerous.
Watch full podcast on Rocklaz.
Rocklaz Radio.
Rocklaz.
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 Rocklaz Radio with Tanmay Shah.